The next piece we're going to look at is how two parents interact with each other to parent their children. And there are 4 ways that we kind of do this, and we'll talk about each one. One is called conflicted, one is disengaged, one is parallel co-parenting, and finally there's cooperative co-parenting. We're going to start out with the most disruptive one, and that's the conflicted co-parenting. Here we have two parents who have not separated the way they are going to parent their children to raise them from the problems that they have in their own relationship. So this couple is still fighting all the time. I may fight about the children today, I might fight about the money tomorrow. All of the stuff that we fight about is still going on. Lots of times in front of the children. Because we don't necessarily pick a time to talk about it. We're going to engage as the topic comes up again. So these parents are in conflict most of the time. If they're divorcing, they really can't be very near each other without getting into an argument. Because they take every opportunity to bring something up, and they get into an argument. So the kids are there, we're arguing. The kids are not there, we're arguing. We're on the phone screaming at each other. The emails or the all caps, bright red with 37 exclamation points at the end of every sentence. They're just at each other all the time. Okay. Kids that are in this kind of a family have the hardest time adjusting. They have the hardest time adjusting. I mean, if the parents are splitting up, they have the hardest time with that too, because the parents are talking, one parent's talking about the other parent when the other parent isn't there to the children, which is putting children in the middle of that conflict, isn't it? Not fair to the children. The next one is called disengaged co-parenting, and this one's a little better than the conflicted co-parent because they're not arguing anymore. They simply avoid contact. So these parents don't call, don't meet. Okay, they may have another person. We talked about that supervised visitation and having somebody move the children back and forth. They may actually have somebody move the children from mom to dad for visitation and from dad to mom for visitation, and they don't enter the same room. They're not arguing though, nor are they solving any of the problems though. So the parenting plan is still not done. Who's going to be responsible for what and how holidays are going to be laid out. We still don't know because we can't talk about it. Okay. The conflict is reduced. There's still a lot of emotion there if they try to do anything, but they're not at each other all the time because they have chosen to kind of stay apart. Kids are aware of the emotion here. Kids know mom and dad don't get along, but it's beneficial for children not to see the arguing all the time. You know, they figure it out and they move through it. So it's a little better for them. Still not ideal, but better. When we have a parallel co-parenting style, here we're moving the same direction. We have the same goal for the kids, but we don't do a lot of sharing of information. If you've ever watched toddlers play, 2- and 3-year-olds, they'll sit next to each other, but they don't actually play together. Each child will have a doll or a truck. They're going to play with their doll or their truck, but God forbid the other child should reach over and take something because there's going to be a problem. These co-parents are like that. They have their parenting plan laid out. They know who's responsible for what. We don't have arguments anymore, but we are very aware of, where we need to stay and what we're not going to bring up. And so in these types of families, if the paper comes home from school talking about school pictures, or the baseball team sign up, it will go to whoever the child takes it home to, and the other parent will never know because you know what? It's not that important. It's not one of those big items that the parents probably have agreed to share between themselves. But if I have to take our child to the hospital, that's usually one of the items that I'm going to let the other parent know about because that's a big item kind of a thing. So there's some crossing of information, but only for what has been determined to be important enough to do that. So they don't argue anymore. They don't get into debates about you do things different than I do and your rules are different. I know your rules are different and I don't talk to you about it anymore. It's kind of that avoidant thing. And we don't discuss the other parent's style, how they do it. I don't engage you on any of that. I pass along what you need to know, and that's about it. Finally, there's cooperative parenting, and this is kind of like that democratic parenting style that both parents are engaged in. Okay? This parenting style allows for there to be ongoing involvement and communication between both parents. So when the baseball sign-up comes home, when little Tommy's with me, I may send you an email. Hey, we got the notification that baseball enrollment is, and I know we've been talking about that. We have to make a decision. Okay, so I may send you an email, or I may call you on the phone, or I may tell you about it on Friday, because when we can cooperatively parent, we actually will have contact with each other. We can talk civilly. Some of these families that I've worked with actually were friends after they weren't a couple anymore. Did things together, their new partner came, the other kids came, they would spend some of the not big holidays, they weren't doing Christmas, but like 4th of July, or they had like a family thing in the summer, and both sides of the child's family came to the same event. They sat next to each other for the 5th grade graduation in the gymnasium. It does happen. It's a process of getting there. This particular type of parenting really helps kids. It helps the emotional and social development of the kids. These kids look at mom and dad who look fine, who act fine, like it's no big deal. They're not bothered that they have 2 different houses. They're not bothered that, they have some kids call them a second dad or a second mom, and they're not really bothered by kids from my stepdad's family, because the parents make it look okay. Okay? These parents tend to have a low level of conflict. These parents can see problems coming up, and they may try to solve them before they actually become problems. They communicate effectively with each other. They're not yelling and screaming anymore. Sometimes we go back and forth between these. I had one family that was pretty much here, and what happened? What happened with the son? Something happened, and it really was, within like one meeting with the father, they were back to being conflicted. They hadn't been able to have a civil conversation for a week over this one issue. And so it isn't unusual to kind of go back and forth because something changed with the child, or something changed with my job, or your job, maybe something we didn't foresee, or something that I thought would be okay, and when it comes to it actually happening, I'm not comfortable with it. Kids really will do better if both parents are actively involved in their lives. They really do better there. They get the chance to have mom and dad showing them how to be in a relationship where we can work things out, where we can solve problems. They perform better in school because their life is stable and they're not stressed. They're less likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. Now, you may not think about that with little ones, but in this country, lots of kids try alcohol for the first time in grade school. It's not unusual for a 3rd or 4th grader, to say that they've tried alcohol, either at a family event or because they had some friends that were drinking beer or doing something and they're trying to be cool. And just like us, when you find something that makes you relax, that makes you calm down, that makes you less anxious, kids will gravitate toward drugs too. The big one for middle school or for grade schoolers is going to be alcohol because it's more readily available. Junior high, we're already seeing pot because it's available. They get older, we still have pot in high school, but we also start seeing painkillers and we start seeing ecstasy because kids are now able to party, to go out and spend time with their friends under less supervision of their parents. And if you have a democratic parent, the parent will know who they're with and where they are. And if you have an autocratic parent, they'll know who they're with and where they are, and they're checking on them. And if you have a permissive parent, they've gone somewhere and they'll be back at some point. Okay? When both parents are involved in that democratic, engaged style, kids do well. They adjust better to to the changes in the family. When parents are absent, that's one of the things when I work with conflicted families, usually on one or both parts, at least when I see them, there's this hope that you will walk away. That you will just walk away and not bother me and the kids. And that is problematic for children, not necessarily for the parent, but for the children. Because kids don't understand why. Kids take it personal. They think they're the cause of why this person walks away, and that they don't love me, and there must be something about me that's unlovable. So kids internalize this, and it affects their esteem, their own, self-idea about who they are, and that they're lovable and likable, and that they're a good child or a good person. And when you see kids like this, those kind of thoughts and that kind of pattern again increase their risks to gravitate toward a drug that makes them numb, that makes them forget, that gives them some mental relief from this when they start to experiment. Okay. These kids show increased incidences of high-risk behavior. They're working to get attention. So they're having unprotected sex. They are driving real fast maybe. They've had a couple of car accidents. They do what would be considered unsafe or maybe crazy things, and their friends may laugh, and we may say, wow, that was crazy, but they're doing it to get attention. They have an increased risk for juvenile delinquency, which means that they're skipping school, they're shoplifting, they're doing some petty theft, they're getting into trouble, and they get into the juvenile system where they too may be on probation and they're monitored. They have difficulty forming successful relationships. And that stems from this experience back here with mom and dad, and I don't understand because this person left. So what do kids really need from us? They need unconditional positive regard, that unconditional love from us, that we love them because they're our kids. Not for what they've done for us, not for how beautiful they are, not for their straight A's, not because they won the beauty pageant, because you're my child, and I will always love you because you're my child. We need to have a meaningful relationship with the child. They need a meaningful relationship with both parents, if it's possible, which means that we're spending time with them on their level, getting to know them, helping them to understand, what's going on at their level, answering their questions without prodding them. Okay. They need to have their physical and emotional needs met. They need to be physically kept safe. Okay. They need to be emotionally kept safe and nurtured. And my last comment there really is talking about allowing your children to have that childhood. To grow up, to have that time to be a kid without worrying about what's going on around them. Some of us didn't get that opportunity, but we probably want that for our kids. What are the benefits of successful co-parenting? Well, we talk about the kids. It minimizes their exposure to conflict. It encourages their relationship with their parents. Okay? It keeps them safe. It encourages them to be successful in school and in establishing relationships so they can go on and be a productive part of our society. What does it do for us? It reduces our stress. We get mental relief too, that I'm not always worried, that I'm not always angry, that I'm not always suspicious about what's around the corner, what's going to happen next, when is the phone call going to come, because you and I have figured out how to do this thing called raising our kids, as co-parents. So how do I work to get along better? Don't pick fights. Don't scorecard. You remember what scorecarding is? The list of things. that I hold against you. Don't do that. Stick it in your back pocket. Okay? Don't escalate conflict. We do not need to help it along. Learn to be and use collaborative and compromising techniques to solve problems. Listen, listen. And don't get confused. Be aware of what is related to me and you and our relationship and what is related to you and me needing to raise our children. We still get stuck in a lot of goo there because we haven't separated what's you and I not working and what's you and I raising our children. Questions? Yeah, I told you. 40 minutes. I'm going to take a break now.